She drifted idly, remote. She balanced in the wind, 2,000 feet above, while the white cloud passed beyond her and went across the estuary to the south. Slowly, her wings curved back. She slipped smoothly through the wind as though she were moving forward on a wire. This mastery of the roaring wind, this majesty and noble power of flight made me shout aloud and dance up and down with excitement.
Yes!
Now, I thought, I have seen the best of the peregrine. There will be no need to pursue it farther. I shall never want to search for it again. I was wrong, of course. There can never be enough.
The Falcon and the Hawk by Helen Macdonald.
The time and place you first read a book can mark it and you for life. Oh, Lord, look at those binoculars. I remember those. God, they were heavy. They were from East Germany. I wore them all the time. Look at me. Photos of yourself when you're small are weird. How old am I there? About 9? I look a bit fierce. A fierce, geeky small girl with binoculars and Wellington boots. No, hang on. No, wait, I remember Dad taking this picture. I'd just come running back from the woods behind the house. I was incredibly excited. I'd just seen a sparrowhawk catch a blackbird, and I needed to tell him all about it. Under a rhododendron bush, there was this sort of desperate struggle, and the hawk's mad, glowing eye looking right into mine, feathers everywhere. And this child, on her knees, staring, mesmerised, amazed.
I have always longed to be part of the outward life, to be out there at the edge of things, to let the human taint wash away in emptiness and silence as the fox sloughs his smell into the cold unwilderness of water, to return to the town as a stranger. I have turned away from the musky opulence of the summer woods, where so many birds are dying. Autumn begins my season of hawk hunting. Spring ends it. Winter glitters between like the arch of Orion. For 10 years I spent all my winters searching for that restless brilliance, for the sudden passion and violence that peregrines flush from the sky. For 10 years I have been looking upward, for that cloud-biting anchor shape, that crossbow flinging through the air. The eye becomes insatiable for hawks.
The book I am reading is called The Peregrine. It is written by a man called J.A. Baker, and it is a book for grown-ups, not children. It is about a man who walks around looking for peregrine falcons in Essex. Peregrine falcons are incredible. They are the fastest bird in the world. I haven't seen one yet, but they are my favourite animal. When I grow up, I'm going to be a falconer and fly peregrine falcons. But there might not be any left because they are going extinct. They are poisoned by DDT, which is a kind of pesticide. It is very small, like dust, and gets into the falcons through the birds they eat in the food chain, so there are hardly any peregrines left now. This book is quite strange, but I have enjoyed reading it. It doesn't really have a plot. It doesn't have any characters either except the man and the falcons, although there are other birds he sees like herons and snipe and curlews, and he finds lots of dead birds that the peregrines have killed. I haven't finished it yet, so I don't know what happens at the end. I don't think it will have a happy ending, but I hope so.
Of course, that was a blatant lie. I didn't expect it to have a happy ending at all. I didn't expect anything to. The falcons were dying. The countryside was dying. Back then, when I was a kid, this was all obvious. I mean, you just looked around and you could see it. Wrecks of dead elm trees everywhere, and blind rabbits with myxomatosis huddled up wet on roadside verges. Otters were gone. Rivers were poisoned. There were guillemots drowning in oil in the sea. Everything was sick. And we'd be next. I knew it. All of us. I knew that one morning there'd be a siren, then a double flash of light on the horizon, and I'd look up and see a distant mushroom cloud, and then on the wind the fallout would come. Invisible dust. And then everything would be dead, or go back to the Stone Age. Flight was impossible. I scratched my name on bits of slate and buried them as deep as I could in the garden under the earth. Maybe they'd survive the apocalypse.
Wherever he goes this winter, I will follow him. I will share the fear and the exaltation and the boredom of the hunting life. I will follow him till my predatory human shape no longer darkens in terror the shaken kaleidoscope of colour that stains the deep fovea of his brilliant eye. My pagan head shall sink into the winter land, and there be purified.
Those times marked the book for me, and made me think I understood it. For years I thought it was a kind of Cold War fable, the story of a man who saw falcons as symbols of extinction, his and everything else's. A sick man, a man with worsening arthritis, who thought that if he followed the falcons for long enough and suffered enough, they'd stop being scared of him, take him for one of their own, forgive him for being human. It was a quest for redemption, I thought. But now, no. I don't think that really anymore, because now I know that when you're broken, you run. And sometimes you don't run away from things, you run towards things. Sometimes it's drugs, sometimes it's sex, sometimes religion, and sometimes it's hawks. How to explain? Where to start? I could start with the box. Or maybe the phone call. No, the box. Just an ordinary box, a big one. Cardboard. It's sitting on the floor in my front room. All the curtains are closed. It's a hot August morning. And I take a deep breath, go up to the box, and open it. It's all right. It's okay. Yep, I know. I'm a scary human with no wings and no feathers. It's all right. The goshawk stares at me in mortal terror, and I can feel the silences between both our heartbeats coincide. Her eyes are huge, luminous, silver in the gloom. Her beak is open. She breathes hot, hawk breath in my face. It smells of pepper and musk and burned stone. Her feathers are half raised and her wings half open, and her scaly yellow toes and curved black talons grip the glove tightly. It feels like I'm holding a flaming torch. I can feel the heat of her fear on my face. I'm trying to talk to her, but it's like talking to something through glass. My words just slide off her, and she stares. The bell on her tail stills, and she stares and stares. It's okay, you can trust me. That's it. Just look at your food. Just ignore me. Look right through me. Just look at the food between your feet. That's it. I'm not here at all. I'm not here at all.
To be recognised and accepted by a peregrine, you must wear the same clothes, travel by the same way, perform actions in the same order. Like all birds, it fears the unpredictable. Enter and leave the same fields at the same time each day. Soothe the hawk from its wildness by a ritual of behaviour as invariable as its own. Hood the glare of the eyes, hide the white tremor of the hands, shade the stark reflecting face, assume the stillness of a tree. Learn to fear. To share fear is the greatest bond of all. The hunter must become the thing he hunts. What is now, and must have the quivering intensity of an arrow thudding into a tree. Yesterday is dim and monochrome. A week ago you were not born. Persist, endure, follow, watch.
That's it. Oh, well done. Jump to the fist. There you go. You eat that now. That's it. Brilliant. Okay. You're not scared of me anymore, are you? No. Right. This is what's going to happen next, Hawk. Hang on a minute. You've got a bit on your beak. There we are. Right. We're going to start taking you for nice walks to get you used to people and cars and dogs and trucks and things. And then you're going to fly to me on a line. And then we're going to take the line away. That's it. You eat that. And we're going to take the line away, and then you're going to fly free. Yep, and then you can be a proper hawk. That's it, Hawk. Yeah. And then when you go free, you're going to be doing what a real hawk does. You're going to be going hunting. We're going to spurn supermarkets, you and me. We're going to catch our own dinners. We're going to go Stone Age. The days go by. The world outside disappears. Nothing exists but me and the hawk. The hawk fills the house with wildness as a bowl of lilies fills a house with scent. Everything there is begins to tip and slide towards the hawk. When I get up, I think about the hawk. When I'm awake, I'm with the hawk. When I go to sleep, I dream about the hawk. I begin to think that Baker had no choice. He followed those falcons because they pulled him towards them. He was lured towards them, just as those gulls and plovers rose helplessly towards the peregrines' killing strike, the same way that the compass beaks of all the small birds hiding in hedges pointed in fear towards the magnet that was the falcon in the air. That's why there were no place names, no people in the book. They'd fallen away. I understood that now. My whole world was like his, animated only by the hawk. Everything I'd been before had been forgotten. Everything that had happened before was hidden by the light the hawk cast. It was an amnesia I was so grateful for, I could cry. But I didn't.
The peregrine was restless and wild as I followed him across the soaking ploughland clay. He flickered lightly ahead of me in the driving rain, flitting from bush to post, from post to fence, from fence to overhead wire. I followed, heavily, with a stone of clay on my boots. But it was worthwhile, for he grew tired of flying and did not want to leave the fields. After an hour's pursuit, he allowed me to watch him from 50 yards. 200 yards had been the limit when we started. Perched on a post, he looked back over his shoulder, but when I moved too much, he jumped up and twisted round to face me. Oh, it was done so quickly that another hawk seemed suddenly to appear there. The rain stopped. The sky cleared and the hawk began to fly. At 2 o'clock he raced away to the east through snaking lariats of starlings. Effortlessly he climbed above them, red gold shining above black. They ringed up in pursuit and he dipped neatly beneath them. Beyond the river he swept down to ground level and starlings rose steeply up like spray from a breaking wave. They could not overtake him. He was running free, wind flowing from the curves of his wings like water from the back of a diving otter. Running across fields, clambering over gates, cycling along lanes, I followed, at my own poor speed. Fortunately, he did not get too far ahead, for he paused to chase every flock of birds he saw. They were not serious attacks. He was not yet hunting. It was like a poppy frisking after butterflies. Fieldfares, lapwings, gulls and golden plover were scattered and driven and goaded into panic. Rooks, jackdaws, sparrows and skylarks were threshed up from the furrows and flung about like dead leaves. The whole sky hissed and rained with birds, and with each rush and plunge and zigzagging pursuit, his playfulness ebbed away and his hunger grew. Starlings rose into the sky like black searchlight beams and wavered aimlessly about, seeking the hawk. Wood pigeons began to come back from the east like the survivors of a battle, flying low across the fields. There were thousands of them, feeding on acorns in the woods, and the hawk had found them. Suddenly, it ended. He mounted like a rocket, curved over in splendid parabola, dived down through cumulus of pigeons. One bird fell back, gashed, dead, looking astonished, like a man falling out of a tree. The ground came up and crushed it.
Hello? I just fell to the floor. I didn't know that really happened. It does. My legs stopped working. I fell, and suddenly I'm sitting on the carpet trying to breathe. It's almost impossible. What I can hear is my mum telling me my dad is dead. Suddenly, no warning, just gone. And I was there with the phone against my ear on the carpet, and the world blown away, like those vaporized houses under a nuclear blast. Gone. Nothing left. Nothing at all. That was months ago. After the funeral, I went out and bought books on bereavement. I read that everyone sees ghosts. Everyone stops eating, or can't stop eating. I read that grief comes in stages you can number and pin like beetles in boxes. That after denial comes grief, or anger. Oh, I should have gone to see a counsellor. I should. But I didn't. I ordered a hawk. From a hawk breeder, a goshawk, the one the books say is the most murderous, psychopathic, uncontrollable hawk of all. Grey, baleful monsters, muscled as pit bulls with the power to bring down small deer. I wanted to train a hawk. I needed to. You can make everything go away by concentrating very hard on something you're not, like a drunk pressing his hand to his forehead to stop feeling sick, or staring at spots of water on the rail in front of you rather than looking down over the precipice at the waters below. I didn't want to be desperate and wild. I didn't want to be angry. But I was. So I let the hawk be those things for me. Hawks don't grieve. Hawks don't hurt. Hawks hunt. Hawks kill.
In the afternoon, I crossed the field that slopes up from Northwood and saw feathers blowing in the wind. The body of a wood pigeon lay breast upward on a mass of soft white feathers. The head had been eaten. Flesh had been torn from the neck, breastbone, ribs and pelvis, and even from the shoulder girdles and the carpal joints of the wings. This tiercel eats well. His butchery is beautifully done. The carcass weighed only a few ounces, so nearly a pound of meat had been taken from it. The bones were still dark red, the blood still wet. I found myself crouching over the kill, like a mantling hawk. My eyes turned quickly about, alert for the walking heads of men. Unconsciously, I was imitating the movements of a hawk, as in some primitive ritual, the hunter becoming the thing he hunts.
front door keys, rabbit leg. There we are, Hawk. Right, it's time. Are you ready? We are going to go outside. We're going to go for a lovely long walk through the city streets, and you're going to see lots of things that are going to scare you and probably scare me. Things you've not seen before, like buses and trucks and buggies and kids and things. So you just keep eating that rabbit leg. There we are. And we'll go for a long walk and we'll come back here. No, don't look at me like that. I don't really want to go either. I'd rather sit with you here and watch bad TV. You just keep... There we are. Right. Are you ready, Hawk? It's time to introduce you to the world.
Night is falling. Light moves out to the fringes of the wood and across the evening fields. Softly through the dusk, the peregrine glides, hushing it aside with silent wings. He searches the constellations of small eyes, sees the woodcock's planetary eye look upwards from the marsh, shafts back his wings and plunges to the light. The woodcock rises, twists under the blade of the hawk and wavers away. He's overtaken, cut down. The hawk lands on the softening bird, grips its neck in his bill. I hear the bone snap, like barbed wire cut by pliers. He nudges the dead bird over. Its wings wave, and it lies on its back. I hear the tearing of feathers, the tug of flesh, the crack and snap of gristle. His white-ringed eyes are huge with dusk. I creep nearer, knees soaking in the marshy ground. The hawk pulls at his prey, looks up. 4 yards separate us, but it is too far. A distance as unspannable as a 1,000-foot crevasse. I drag like a wounded bird, floundering, sprawled. He watches me, moving his head, looking with each eye in turn. He is not afraid. He is watching the white glitter of my eyes. He cannot understand their staccato flicker. If I could stop them moving, he would stay. But I cannot stop them.
Walking through the streets with a hawk makes you conspicuous. I'm trying with every fibre in my body to ignore the curious people and will the hawk into ignoring them too.
Harry Potter!
I keep walking, fuming. It's not an owl. It's not a bloody owl. It's a goshawk. She's jumpy. I'm jumpy. She's nervous. I'm nervous. Fear is contagious. I've been with the hawk so long, just her and me, that I'm looking at all this through her eyes, like I'm hardly human at all. This is a strange, new world. It doesn't look like a bicycle. It's a spinning mystery of glittering metal. The hawk watches a woman throwing a ball to a dog on her lawn, and I watch too, as baffled by what she's doing as the hawk is. I stare at traffic lights before I remember what they are. The buses going past are walls with wheels. I'm lost. What's salient to the hawk in the city is not what is salient to man. Everything she sees is frightening but uninteresting to her, irrelevant. Until there's a clatter of wings. We both look up. There's a pigeon, a wood pigeon, sailing down to roost in a lime tree above us. Time slows, and the hawk is transformed. It's as if all her weapon systems were suddenly engaged, red crosshairs, She stands on her toes and cranes her neck. This flight path, this thing, she thinks, this is fascinating. Some part of the hawk's young brain has just worked something out, and it has everything to do with death.
Today, I walked for 10 miles beside the river. Horizons were misty, the sun cold with blue sky above, the north wind light. I stood by a wooden barn, weighing a frozen and shriveled white owl in my hand. I had lifted it down from a rafter as though it had been a flower pot. It was cold and dry and brittle, stale and long dead. Something hit the roof of the barn, slithered down and fell at my feet. It was a wood pigeon. Blood welled from its eye like a red tear and spread over its face in a horrifying lopsided circle. I killed it, threw it down in the snow, and walked on. The chattering, circling peregrine descended to its prey. A day of blood, of sun, snow, and blood. Blood red. What a useless adjective that is. Nothing is as beautifully, richly red as flowing blood on snow. It is strange that the eye can love what the mind and body hate.
Today I saw a sparrowhawk catch a blackbird near my house. It was incredible. I knew it was a female sparrowhawk because it was quite large and it had orange eyes and a black and white barred chest, and its wings were all spread over the bird it had caught, which was a blackbird. It took quite a long time to kill it, which was a bit horrible, but sparrowhawks only eat birds, so it wasn't cruel because it is nature. I wanted to try and catch it, so I crawled closer to it, but then it looked right at me and went completely still. There was blood on its beak and a feather stuck to it too. It just stared at me for ages. I didn't move, but it still suddenly got too scared and flew away. It left the blackbird behind, and I picked it up, and it was soft and warm, a bit like when you take bread out of the oven, but it was really dead. I didn't know what to do with it, so I put it back under the bush because the hawk might come back for it. And then I went back to the house and told Dad, and he got his camera and we came back and hid to see if the hawk would come back so he could take a photo of it. We waited for ages, and I was really excited that Dad would see it too. But it didn't come back, and it got too dark, and in the end we had to go home. Dad said I was very lucky to see something like this. He's right. It was amazing. It was probably the best thing I've ever seen in my life.
By 2 o'clock I had been to all the peregrines' usual perching places, but had not found him. Standing in the fields near the north orchard, I shut my eyes and tried to crystallize my will into the light-drenched prism of the hawk's mind. Warm and firm-footed in long grass, smelling of the sun, I sank into the skin and blood and bones of the hawk. The ground became a branch to my feet. The sun on my eyelids was heavy and warm. Like the hawk, I heard and hated the sound of man, that faceless horror of the stony places. I shared the same strange yearning to be gone. I sank down and slept into the feather-light sleep of the hawk. Then I woke him with my waking.
Okay, Hawk. Remember what happened yesterday when I put you on that post and you flew to me for food? Well, we're going to do it again today, but a little bit further. So I'll just tie this line to your swivel on your jesses. There we are. And that's it. And you hop onto this perch. That's it. And I'm going to run back and call you. Ready? Here we go. Come on, Hawk. So you stand there, you raise your arm, and whistle the whistle you've whistled 100 times before. Only this time it doesn't mean there's food at your feet. It means, please come. Please see me as where you want to be. Fly to me. Ignore the towering clouds, the wind that pushes the lime trees. Fix yourself on me and fly between where you are and where I am. Come to me. Here. She drops from the perch and flies low, rowing through the thick air fast, and your heart is in your mouth. You fear the faltering. You fear the veering off, the sudden fright, the hawk's need to fly away. But she doesn't. The beating wings carry her to you, and her momentum swings her up to the fist. And the thump of her gripping talons on the glove is a miracle. It's always a miracle. I choose to be here, she says. I reject the air, the woods, the fields. And her eyes glare into mine, and she wolfs down her reward. There is nothing that is such a salve to my grieving heart than the hawk returning.
Today he flew east when I approached, circled, then drifted down towards me in a series of steep glides and stalls. I stood near the dead tree and watched his descent. There was no widening of the eyes in fear, no convulsive leap aside. He just came steadily down and glided past me, 20 yards away. His eyes were fixed on my face, and his head turned as he went past so that he could keep me in view. I think he regards me now as part hawk, part man, worth flying over to look at from time to time, but never wholly to be trusted. A crippled hawk, perhaps, unable to fly or kill cleanly, uncertain and sour of temper. He has found a meaning for me, but I do not know what it is. I am his slow and moribund companion, Caliban to his Ariel.
Come on, Hawk! Come on! Come on!
She flies towards me, loose for only the third time. But something goes wrong. I don't know what it is. She's spooked by something, clouts my glove with one foot and keeps flying. The gap between me and the departing hawk is something I can feel like a wound. She's circling and looking at me and seems uncertain about whether to come back or how to come back. I am standing here. She is flying in circles. All I can feel is the angle between up there where the hawk is and down here where my heart is. Out goes the fist. I pile food on it.
Come on, Hawk! Come on! Come on! Come on, Hawk!
And then suddenly, the hawk is back on the glove. And I'm feeling like I'm soaked in iced water. The hawk eats. I start breathing again. I hear a plover calling and look up. Directly overhead, right over us, a single lapwing. One lapwing, so high its underside is still illuminated by the sun, is flying onwards into the night.
At 3 o'clock, I suddenly felt sure that if I went at once to the coast 8 miles away, I should find the peregrine there. Such certainty comes seldom, but when it comes, it is as irresistible as the downward bending of the dowser's twig. I went. A shelduck lay on the mud, shining like a broken vase, green, black and white, chestnut bronze, vermilion. Feathers had been plucked from its breast, flesh had been sliced from the bone. Deep down inside, the blood was wet. The peregrine had fed. Was he still near? I clambered up the side of the sea-wall and looked cautiously over the top. Screened by the low green bank of the wall, I stumble along on my hands and knees towards the place where I think the hawk will be, hoping He will stay there till I come. The short grass is dry and brittle and sweet-smelling. It is spring grass, clean and sharp as salt water. I bury my face in it, breathe in it, breathe in the spring. Then I move forward again, very softly, because the hawk is listening. Slowly, the dusk begins to uncoil. Not the short, wild pang of winter dusk, but the long, slow dusk of spring. Mist stirs in the dikes and furs the edges of the fields. I have to guess where I am in relation to the hawk. 3 more yards, and I decide to take a chance. Very slowly, I straighten up and look over the top of the wall. I am lucky. The hawk is only 5 yards away. He sees me at once. He does not fly, but his feet grip tightly on the thorny twigs of the bush. The ridged knuckles tense and big with muscle. His wings loosen and tremble at the edge of flight. I keep still, hoping he will relax and accept my predatory shape that bulks against the sky. The long feathers of his breast are rippled by the wind. I cannot see his colour. In the falling gloom he looks much larger than he really is. The noble head lowers, but lifts again at once. Swiftly now, he is resigning his savagery to the night that rises around us like dark water. The great eyes look into mine. When I move my arm before his face, they still look on, as though they see something beyond me from which they cannot look away. The last light flakes and crumbles down. Distance moves through the dim lines of the inland elms and comes closer and gathers behind the darkness of the hawk. I know he will not fly now. I climb over the wall and stand before him, and he sleeps.
Was it a happy ending for him? No, I don't think so. This wasn't a reconciliation. It was a kind of death. Night wells up and drowns them both, the falcon and the man. The rest, silence. He knew what would happen to him. His arthritis got so bad he could hardly walk, and the wild peregrines were lost to him. He died in 1986. He was only 61. But he was wrong about the peregrines. So was I. They didn't die. There are more of them than ever before, nesting on cliffs and office blocks and church towers, soaring over cities, pulling pigeons out of the sky over the Thames. Something has gone, though. Something has died. Those flocks of birds, the lapwings, the great hosts of them, the congregations of small farmland birds that Baker took for granted, the flocks his peregrines split and buffeted across the Essex skies. They're things of memory now. I mourn them. We tie ourselves too easily to the big things, the big ideas. We forget the small. We forget community, we forget people. We love hawks. We ignore the pigeons. For me, was there a happy ending? Well, there was a death, but nothing about it was anything like I expected. Nothing at all. Everything happened so fast. Everything. It was like a comic strip. Frame, frame, frame. Frame 1, hawk spluttering from the fist in barred wings and pinions and talons. Frame 2, hawk low to the ground, grass streaking along under her. Frame 3, a pheasant rising from the thistles. Split-second, ink-starred decisions in the hawk's tactical brain. She slewed round slingshot style, heel bow soaking up G-force like a sponge, closed her wings and was gone. After the pheasant, over the hedge. I started running.
Bloody hell. Oh, well done, hawk. You caught a pheasant. Well done. Wow. Well done, that's it. Yep, there we are.
I stare at the hawk as she grips the dead pheasant, and her mad, silver eyes stare right back at me. I'm amazed. I don't know what I expected to feel. Bloodlust? Brutality? No, nothing like that. There are thorn scratches all over me from where I dived through the hedge, and an ache in my heart I can't place. There's a sheeny fog in the air, dry like talc. I look at the hawk, the pheasant, the hawk, and everything changes. The hawk stops being a thing of madness and anger. She becomes a child. It shakes me to the core. She is a child. A baby hawk that's just worked out who she is, what she's for. I reach down and start, unconsciously as a mother helping a child with her dinner, plucking the pheasant with the hawk. For the hawk. And when she starts eating, I sit on my heels and watch her eat. Feathers lift, blow down the hedge and catch in spiders' webs and thorn branches. The bright blood on her toes coagulates and dries. Time passes. Benison of sunlight. A wind shifts the thistle stalks and is gone. And I start crying, soundlessly. Tears roll down my face. For the pheasant, for the hawk, for Dad, for the little girl who watched a hawk and ran back to the house, amazed, and had her photograph taken, standing there in her Wellingtons and binoculars. For Baker, who ran after hawks until the darkness came down and took them all away. And you know, the strange thing was that right then, sitting next to the hawk, crying my eyes out, I'd never felt so safe in my life.
In The Falcon and the Hawk by Helen Macdonald, J.A. Baker was David Birrell, Gemma Lawrence was the young Helen, and Helen Macdonald played herself. The Falcon and the Hawk was produced in Bristol by Tim